So I knew a lot about it, during 2020 when everything was shut down. I got my license. Just I do it for. I'm not out there advertising. I just do it for friends. Plus, with the fire department,
Huh?
the first responders.
I would love for them to have presented for a whole day. It was like not enough for what I'm into. I was straight up like giddy. I'm like, this is the fun stuff to me. C. I like C.
We know a guy.
Yeah.
That happened over in.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are getting ready to start our meeting this evening, and I would like to take a moment and ask everyone if you would take these out and make sure that your phones are on silent or turned off. Greatly appreciate that. I'd like to welcome every one of you here this evening. Thank you for joining us. We are going to take a moment of silence, so if you would please join us for that. Thank you. Now, if you wouldn't mind joining us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It truly is wonderful to see each and every one of you this evening, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here in person. I will tell you, while I am wearing a mask, I have been exposed, but I have tested negative. I want to make sure that I share that with you. Most folks don't see me with a mask, and wanted to make sure that you were aware. We are going to move into our agenda this evening around staff questions. Board members, does anyone have questions for staff at this time? Seeing none this evening, we will now move to our public comments and presentations. And we are going to start with our life-saving awards. So thank you, Major. As these folks come up, our wonderful officers, it is an opportunity for us to take a moment to say thank you. So I'm going to read each one of these, and then we will hand out those awards, and I'm sure we'll grab pictures too. They're not on my face. I do that all the time. These might be important. All right. On September the 7th of 2022, officers were dispatched to a serious traffic crash at Old Statesville Road and 485. Officer Duncan was the first officer to arrive, and he discovered 2 children injured inside a vehicle. Officer Duncan quickly realized a 2-year-old girl had sustained serious injuries and didn't have a pulse. Officer Duncan removed the child from the vehicle and immediately started CPR. Officer Jeff Gurton arrived on scene while CPR was in process and began assisting Officer Duncan. After a few minutes, the officers were able to regain a pulse on the child, and she started shallow breathing. The officers monitored the child for approximately 10 minutes until medic and fire units arrived. Officer Betty Anderson was also on the scene, and she played a vital role attending to the mother and other child involved in the accident. Officer Anderson evaluated the other child's injuries and calmed the mother. Officer Anderson's primary focus was to comfort the mother and child so other first responders could give their full attention to the younger child that was experiencing life-threatening injuries. Because of the quick actions, dedication, and initiative, Officers Zach Duncan and Jeff Gurton saved the life of a 2-year-old child. These officers demonstrated the highest level of knowledge and training by administering CPR prior to the arrival of medic. Their actions showed exceptional courage and honor during a stressful situation. Officer Anderson is to be commended for her care and compassion shown in helping the older child while waiting on medic and fire to arrive. Officer Anderson demonstrated dedication, initiative, and professionalism, and her steady demeanor was an integral part of saving a child's life. Currently, the girl's health has continued to improve, and they expect a full recovery. Because of these officers' actions, we would like to award Officer Duncan and Gurton with the Huntersville Police Life Saving Award and Officer Anderson with a police commendation. Please join me. We have one more. Get to my page. Here we are. On September the 5th of 2020, Officer Evan Tortorelli was dispatched to an assist medical call regarding an unconscious person. Upon arriving, Officer Tortorelli quickly noticed the signs of a possible overdose. He immediately demonstrated a high level of knowledge and training by administering Narcan prior to the arrival of medic. His quick actions and training were successful in saving this person's life. And because of his dedication to preserving human life, we would like to award Officer Evan Tortorelli with the Huntersville Police Life Saving Award. Please. So I just want to say, especially with the Narcan, this is something that Commissioner Phillips brought to us and said, you know, our officers really need to have this in their toolbox. And so I also want to take a moment to say thank you for keeping us moving forward and making sure that our citizens are taken care of and that our officers have the tools necessary to be able to help our citizens. So thank you. Thank you all again. Just greatly appreciated. So, as we move on, I also have a proclamation this evening that I would like to read. This is the fun stuff, I have to tell you. This is the fun stuff. Whereas Rotary, as a humanitarian organization, peace is a cornerstone of our mission. We believe when people work to create peace in their communities, that change can have a global effect. And whereas Rotary creates environments of peace by carrying out service projects and supporting peace, fellowships, and scholarships, our members take action to address the underlying causes of conflict, including poverty, discrimination, ethnic tension, lack of access to education, and unequal distribution of resources. And whereas the issue of peace embraces the deepest hopes of all peoples and remains humanity's guiding inspiration, and whereas in 1981, the United Nations proclaimed the International Day of Peace be devoted to commemorating and strengthening the ideals of peace, both within and among all nations and peoples. And whereas the United Nations expanded the observance of the International Day of Peace in 2001 to include the call for a day of global ceasefire and nonviolence, and invited all nations and people to honor a cessation of hostilities for the duration of the day. And whereas there is a growing support within our nation for the observance of the International Day of Peace, which affirms a vision of our world at peace and fosters cooperation between individuals, organizations, and nations. And whereas global crises impel all citizens to work toward converting humanity's noblest aspirations for world peace into a practical reality for future generations. And whereas the Rotary Club of Lake Norman, Huntersville, is one of over 60-plus Rotary and, I knew I was going to mess that up, Rotaract? You got it. I got it. Rotaract clubs throughout our Rotary district, 7,680, with over 2,300 members sponsoring service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, health, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their local communities and abroad. And now, therefore, I, Melinda Bales, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim September the 21st, International Day of Peace in Huntersville, North Carolina. And I would like for every Rotarian to stand up this evening. Please. Would you please join me? Please come up. Please, Jack, come on. Commissioner, please come. You want to come to the front? I would love to be able to hand this to all of you. I want to tell you as they're coming, they have you want to explain it. You explain who is up here with us.
Sure, why don't you go ahead? That woman.
No, I just meant introduce.
Oh, introduce. Oh, great. Okay. So in Rotary, we have a program called Rotary Youth Exchange, and that's basically a program designed for our youth who can travel abroad and do 1 year of studies. They're high school students that we sponsor. So this year in our district, we are actually hosting 7 students. And one of the 7 students is Ben, and Ben has actually come from Hungary. He's staying in Huntersville. So if you see him around, because he's probably the only one with a pretty hair. So go to him, and that's what we do for Rotary. It's called the Youth Exchange Program. So thank you. So we brought him here just so that he knows about what actually happens in the United States in the town.
Local government, Ben, we welcome you. Truly do. And I would like to present that to you.
Thank you. Do you mind if you take a picture? Actually, there's a free picture there. There's a free picture here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I will tell you all, Rotary does just amazing work in giving back to our community, so truly, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on with a presentation from Hearts and Hands Food Pantry. Who is coming this evening? If you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone up there, right where I was, and introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sandra Marks. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Hearts and Hands Food Pantry right here in Huntersville. This is my eldest daughter, Kenya. She's our director. And we thank everybody for allowing us to give a little presentation on what we do here to fight against food insecurity, not just here in Huntersville, but the greater Charlotte area.
Next slide. Do I get to control it? There we go. Got it. Okay.
We are proud to be one of the only fully independent food pantries in all of North Carolina, allowing our services to be easily accessible and low barrier with no referrals required.
Our food pantry was started right here in Huntersville 5 years ago. We're going to have our 5th-year anniversary right after Thanksgiving. And our mission is basically we give because we believe food is a basic human right. We have a strong commitment to combating food insecurity, expanding food access, and creating food equity through our service. And we have a lot of partnerships in the community, both with individuals, with organizations, with businesses, with churches that have helped us serve all these years. And we've got some really exciting new ones that have come up this year as well. So we have really 3 main services right now. We have curbside pickup right at our facility, which is literally walking distance from this town hall, right on Old Statesville, 3 doors down from the fire station. We have our delivery service, and we have some of our amazing volunteers who drive all over Mecklenburg County every week to serve families and people in need dealing with issues of immunocompromised or major health challenge or disabled, or even the elderly. We have elderly clients that we serve here in Huntersville that we've served since we started. We serve clients every 2 weeks they're eligible, so we have long-term as well as people who are dealing with one-off kind of disaster scenarios like job loss or, God forbid, their house burned down. We've had a few of those. This year we also started mobile pantry, so we bring our pantry services to some of the food desert communities within the county, especially South Charlotte, West Charlotte, East Charlotte. And in addition to that, over the years, we've been able to partner with 211, with NC Care 360, with Find Help, Atrium, Novant, and now we're partnering as well with DoorDash to reach even more people for delivery services for food and personal care items as well. We have pet supplies, we have baby supplies as well. So we're really trying to, as an organization, stand in the gap for anyone who has needs anywhere in our area. We even have clients in South Carolina, and during the pandemic, we had a family that came from Virginia. And that's part of our model where we don't require referrals. We can serve people same day. We've had people call us and be at our facility within an hour. And so that allows us to really reach a lot of people who are otherwise cut off or disconnected from potentially other service providers in our area or don't know what resources are available to them. So we had a really cool video, but it's not playing. But this is just some pictures of our facility, some of our volunteers there getting ready for service.
Okay, so who are we? Hearts and Hands Food Pantry was founded in 2017 by myself, Sandra, and my daughter, Kenya. And the idea to start this food pantry came in a very unexpected place. We were actually watching an episode of Extreme Couponing. I don't know if any of you have seen that show, but we were kind of amazed to see that you could buy hundreds of dollars worth of groceries and pay actually nothing. So we kind of looked at each other, and it was kind of like a divine thing that happened, and we said to each other, we can do that, and we can start a food pantry at our church. We did that in 2017, but the desire was always there for us to get into the community so that we could really meet the needs of the people. So in 2018, we were lucky to find the house with the llama right up the street, and that's where we are today, and that's how we started. Our desire really was to administer to the care and the bodies and the minds of people who are in need. So we just don't hand them food. We also want to meet them where they are, talk with them, get to understand what is happening in their lives, to be able to get other resources for them if they need it. So that's pretty much how we started.
So now, 5 years later, we serve long-term support for over 5,000 families. We are on track for 7,500 by the end of this year between all of our 3 services. And we are actually looking to do some other really cool things in the neighborhood as well, like start to bring local produce pop-ups into neighborhoods that are not able to get produce. I'm also one of the chairs of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Food Policy Council, so we have a large program that we do with a lot of the farmers markets in our county. So we're trying to partner with farmers markets to bring produce, and we'll bring everything else and meet people where they are right in their neighborhood, where they can literally walk to the corner and get what they need. So we want to acknowledge our volunteers. So many of you came out tonight. Thank you. We could not do it without them. They come to Huntersville every week, and we couldn't serve all these people and care for everybody without them. You all have been incredible, and we wanted to make sure to acknowledge you tonight. We are here because you're here with us.
Yes, and also one of the things I wanted to say is that when we started out in Huntersville, a lot of people thought that here in North Mecklenburg, you don't have a lot of the issues that you have in Charlotte. But we're seeing this more and more. We're seeing a lot more homelessness. We're seeing people that are coming to us. They're living in their cars. They're living behind Walmart. So we're trying to address that. We're trying to reach these people. We're trying to, get resources to them. And we're trying to bring those resources because somehow there's a little disconnect between Charlotte and here. And we're trying to partner with other organizations to, broaden the scope of what can happen here for people who are suffering from these issues as well.
So if anybody wants to volunteer, you can sign up through our website. We also had a really cool video for you, but it's not going to play. But this is one of our clients. He has been with us since 2020. He was gainfully employed. He worked in Charlotte, and of course the pandemic hit us all. He was furloughed and ended up losing his job. He's had some health challenges, and also his son passed away. And so he's raising his grandkids. And so he thought he was retired and done with all of that, and then of course this happened. And so, we're just here to make sure that he has enough for those kids, that he has enough for him and his wife, and that he can get through. And that's really what this is. It's really just helping people survive on the most basic level, but really caring for them while you do that, and getting to know their story and getting to know what's going on with them. And that also allows us to be able to quickly connect people with other services that they might need. We get calls and emails every day for people who are looking for rental assistance, affordable housing, they're looking for clothing, they're looking for furniture. And so we really work hard to mobilize as quickly as we can to get them connected, to make those calls, to advocate on their behalf, to get them served. A lot of times, the services that we have in our county, like we mentioned before, go to people who are Charlotte residents, and North Meck is kind of overlooked. So we're very passionate about advocating for North Meck to have a strong presence in being able to share in those resources for our citizens as well. And so finally, just our contact information. Of course, the easiest way is our website, which is heartsandhandsfoodpantry.com, or just come see us. We're right down the street, and we'll be happy to receive you. We're open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and every other Saturday, because we work outside of this. But you're welcome to come visit. You're welcome to volunteer, and we just appreciate this opportunity that you've given us to share our work with you and share that we're your neighbors here in Huntersville and hopefully support what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for coming and sharing what you all really are doing with Hearts and Hands and the food pantry there. And look at all of your volunteers who have come out this evening and to show support as well. I think that's wonderful. We're now going to move on to our next presentation discussion with Colonial Pipeline and representatives of NCDEQ. Folks, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and come on up to the microphone so that everyone can hear. Is there anyone from NCDEQ here with us this evening? Y'all want to come on up too? That way you're close at hand, because I am so sure that the questions that are going to be lobbied that way, it'd be great to have you both there as well. Well, thank you all for coming and joining us this evening and for your willingness to come and not only give the town an update, but also be willing to answer any questions that this board may have. I will go ahead and turn it over, if you wouldn't mind stating your name and who you work with.
Yes, of course. So thank you, Mayor Bales. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you to the citizens of Huntersville for having us. I'm Meg Blackwood. I'm Colonial Pipeline's Public Affairs Director. And what I thought I would do tonight is spend some time giving you an update about the site since the last time that we were here, as well as tell you about some of our activities that we're doing now, maybe a few things that are on the horizon, and then also to talk about some lessons learned since the incident. And then, of course, commissioners' questions at the end as well. I would like to thank and recognize the NCDEQ for being here as well. We have a lot of respect for this agency, and we appreciate being able to collaborate with you all throughout the response and remediation process. I know that you work closely with our technical team and meet with them twice a week still as well. So since the last time we were here, just a couple of updates. We resolved our litigation with the NCDEQ back in June, and as part of that, we gave a revised volume estimation. Again, a volume estimation, I do want to stress, is an estimate. Each time that we make an estimate is based on the best available data that we have at the time. So prior estimates that we made were based on an environmental model. An environmental model takes into account conditions at the site, a lot of soil data and things of that nature. And as we were doing this new estimation, one of the things we realized was that conditions at that particular site are a bit different than what we had initially thought them to be. There are unique subterranean geological formations in that area that made rerunning an environmental data a bit challenging. So we have pivoted, and our new estimate is based on operational data. Operational data really looks at the product that we move, and it takes into account that data. So the new volume estimate that we released in July is 2 million gallons, and we've recovered about 75% of that volume. And again, this is a process that took quite a bit of time. One of the things we needed to do was to validate a release date. We did that internally and then retained a third-party expert to validate that. So when we learned it was July 27th, we then began to look through the detailed operational data, and that's how we reached the 2 million gallons number. Let me talk a little bit about current situation at the site. We currently have about 400 subsurface monitoring and recovery wells in place, and those wells allow us to have detailed data about the site that we analyze, and then we collaborate with NCDEQ and provide that information, and we talk about remediation plans. Recently, we established an electrical service at the site, and of importance for the community, what that allowed us to do then was to take some of those generators away. So it helped with noise at the site, it helped with emissions, and it also helped with some of the truck traffic on the road. We think that's a positive development for citizens of the area. I do want to stress that product remains in the general vicinity of the release site. I know that's been a question we've heard from the public, and it does. And there have been no impacts to any active drinking water supply wells. We have, since the incident started, routinely on a weekly basis sampled all drinking water supply wells within 1,500 feet of the incident site. That's a radius that was established with DEQ, and there have been no detections in any of those samples. We also continue to work very closely with the Ayler Nature Preserve. That's the property where the incident occurred. It's owned by Mecklenburg County, and we work very closely and in collaboration with them on all the plans put in place at the site. I really want to stress our appreciation for Chris Matthews in particular, who's been a very good partner. We've worked with him to develop the site plans. There's a picture up here of the right-of-way. This is where it was just a few months ago, actually just a few weeks ago. So this was a wildflower blend that we worked with the Ayler Nature Preserve to select and to put back at site. And again, our goal has always been, and our commitment, I should say, has always been to remediate this site fully, to put it back as it was, and to work in collaboration with the county on those plans. Right now, just a little bit about our engagement and where we're heading. So we do meet with the plan and zoning staff of the town here on things like landscaping plans, stormwater treatment plans, those things. Those conversations continue on a frequent basis. Next steps, we are in the process of applying for a permit that's called an NPDES permit. And what that will allow us to do in part is to turn on some deep wells called hydraulic control wells. Those will help with product recovery. As we do that, there will be a fair amount of water generated from that. So what we've proposed to do is to create a facility on the property that we own and treat that water and then discharge that back into the environment. Now, I want to stress that this water will be treated, and there will be a treatment plan put in place that NCDEQ will monitor. There will be samples taken to make sure any water discharged back into the community and the environment meets all quality standards. A couple of points I want to talk about with respect to that permit, again, from a community perspective. If we didn't have the permit, our option would be to truck that water outside. So it would be going several hundred miles, and you would probably see upwards of 200 trucks a day leaving the site. Again, we think it is less impactful for the community to treat it on site. And also, we have been in communications with the local river keepers. We've talked to the Yadkin, the PD, and the Catawba River Keeper about the impact of putting this water back in the watershed, and it's actually a value to the community because it keeps water here rather than taking it out and dewatering the site. We also continue to work with Mayor Bales, the town commissioners. We give them communications and we update them as well as the public. We still have our incident response site up. If you Google Colonial Huntersville, you'll find that site, and we regularly post updates to it. You can see a snapshot from an infographic here. We try to make that information easy to understand and readily available to the public. There's also a button on there. If anybody has a question at any point in time, you can ask a question. Those questions come to Colonial, and we respond to all of them. So I would encourage anybody who has a question to use that mechanism as well. And we also regularly communicate with Mecklenburg County commissioners, the state senators, and the federal counterparts as well. I'd like to touch briefly on some lessons learned. I know that the last time we were here, that was a question, and so I'd like to talk a little bit about today. So a question we get sometimes is, what are you doing to make sure this type of incident doesn't happen again? Colonial is committed to, we have a motto of 0 is possible, and we live that motto, and we're trying to achieve that every single day. So what caused the incident here? When we repaired a dent back in the 1990s, we put over what is called a Type A sleeve. A Type A sleeve is an approved regulatory repair. It's an additional piece of pipe that goes over to strengthen and enforce. This was particular one was a segmented sleeve, which meant that there were several pieces stacked on top of the others. Over time, because it wasn't welded on the ends, moisture intruded underneath the sleeve and then led to some corrosion. And then that corrosion is what led to a crack that then product released from. So after the Huntersville incident, but prior to any regulatory enforcement action, we began to look across our system for similar conditions. And we have repaired and replaced all of the type A segmented and stacked sleeves on our main lines. Those no longer exist. They've all been converted to type B pressure-containing sleeves. And what that means is when you have a type B sleeve that's welded on the ends, even over time, if something were to happen to that issue that's being repaired, let's say it's a crack or it's a dent, the pressure is contained, so the product cannot get out of the pipe. We also have done some different tool runs. So one of the ways that we look at our asset is we run what are called inline inspection tools. So we've implemented a new tool. It's got a very big name, so forgive me as I read here for a moment, but it's an ultrasonic wall loss measurement tool. What that means is it can see corrosion. So as I mentioned earlier, what happened here was there was corrosion that grew under a sleeve. This new tool allows us to see those types of situations and to prevent them before they ever occur. We also have asked our Senior Vice President of Operations, Wesley Dunbar, to chair a committee with the American Petroleum Institute to work with our colleagues in the industry on leak detection and leak prevention as well. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. We appreciate the patience and the cooperation from the Huntersville community. We've been in this community for more than 50 years. We understand that this incident may have caused you to question us and question your trust of us. I'm here to tell you that we are committed to re-earning your trust, and I hope that through our actions, you will see that we are committed and we are a company that is dedicated to you, and again, to restoring the environment to the conditions that we had it before this release occurred. And with that, I will take questions, or Mayor Bells, if you'd rather me pivot to DEQ, it is what you prefer.
Board, would you like to also hear from DEQ first before we volley questions? If you wouldn't mind, yes, we would like to hear from NCDEQ. If you wouldn't mind coming up and just introducing yourselves, please.
Hi, my name is Wayne Randolph. This is Vance Jackson. I'm the head of a section within DEQ, and I'm also the emergency response coordinator.
And I'm the chief of the underground storage tank section, which has regulatory oversight for the release.
So today we're going to go over the Colonial Pipeline consent order. Is it the gray one or the black one? There you go. Okay. North Carolina DEQ and Colonial Pipeline entered into a consent order motion on June 30th, 2022. The consent order was filed with Superior Court on July 7th, 2022, and became effective on that date. Within 30 days of the consent, well, the summary of the consent order is within 30 days of entry into the order, Colonial shall provide the department with an updated estimate of volume of the gasoline release from the pipeline, which was mentioned earlier. That information was submitted on July 22nd, 2022. Within 120 days of entry into the order, Colonial shall provide the department an addendum to the October 30th, 2021 revised comprehensive site assessment. It's also may hear of it as a CSA. That is due in November 2022. Within 60 days of entry into the order, Colonial shall submit a plan to conduct further assessment of the free product in the bedrock. This was actually turned in September 2nd, 2022, before the deadline. Within 180 days of approval of the plan stated above, Colonial shall implement the plan to conduct further assessment of free product in bedrock at the site. This is tentatively due March 2023, and you'll see moving forward some of the dates, the due dates are tentative. That's because like the plan that they've submitted September 2nd, they submit that date, and then we review it, and once we approve it, then that 180 days begin. So that's why you'll see tentative dates moving forward. Within 120 days of implementing the approved plan for free product assessment, Colonial shall submit a revised conceptual site model and revised comprehensive site assessment, tentatively due July 2023. Within 90 days of the approved revised conceptual site model and revised comprehensive site assessment, Colonial shall submit a corrective action plan. May hear that as a CAP. That's tentatively due October 2023. Within 30 days of entry into the order, Colonial shall commence sampling for PFAS, PFOS, and related constituents in identified monitoring wells. This is done by quarterly sampling over a course of 18 months. Also, monthly sampling of surface water, monthly monitoring data and site activities will be submitted to DEQ in quarterly monitoring reports. And on the screen is a link to DEQ's website to be able to view those. And I'll turn it over to.
A little bit about the penalties contained within the consent order. Within 30 days of the consent order, penalties were to be paid to the department. The civil penalty was $4.5 million that has been received by DEQ. And the department also recovered, or cost recovered, $250,000 to account for staff time for the Division of Waste Management. That money is with the department. Ultimately, the civil penalty goes to the school system, and that's by state statute. Other penalties are incorporated into the consent order for failure to meet any of the specified time frames. And those will be $5,000 per day for each one that is late or just for some reason fails to be submitted. So it's a legal way of establishing our relationship with Colonial as what is expected and what is required, and carries with it the weight of those additional penalties should they become necessary. Oops. Oh, there we go. And last, I want to say essentially the same thing that Colonial did. NCDEQ is committed to oversight of remediation of the site and ensuring public health and environmental protection during the cleanup of the site. To date, there have been no receptors, those things which are pathways for human health impairment or danger to the public. And we do monitor routinely. I lead a team of 7 environmental professionals, at least 4 of us who are professional geologists, licensed geologists in the state of North Carolina. And we meet weekly with Colonial's management and technical staff to discuss the site and the activities that are occurring at the site. We also have the ability to call on additional staff within DWM and senior level management all the way up to the assistant secretary, and this does include toxicologists and engineers. Our routine activities, some of which were touched on by Colonial, since I believe the second week after the release was discovered, Colonial at our direction, has been sampling every water supply well within 1,500 feet of the release on a weekly basis. And to date, we have seen no petroleum impacts to any of those wells. That continues as we speak on a weekly basis. On a quarterly basis, we expand that another 500 feet. So quarterly, we go out to 2,000 feet, and likewise, we have seen nothing in any of those wells. All the monitoring wells at the site are sampled on a monthly basis, and we see that data routinely and evaluate that as it comes in. There's also, there are 2 creeks nearby, and both of those are sampled monthly in conjunction with the Division of Water Resources and Mecklenburg County at agreed upon sites. And to date, we have seen nothing in any of those surface waters. There's also daily air monitoring for petroleum vapor for both total volatile content and specifically for benzene. And there have been some excursions from the standards for those, but those have been very limited and very temporally limited when they have occurred. There is also one new residence located very close to the free product plume at this site that had the misfortune of being actually completed and ready for occupancy as the release occurred. In order to protect that family, Colonial does monthly vapor monitoring around that property to ensure that there's no vapor intrusion into the house that would create a health problem. And Colonial has also installed a vapor abatement system for that house to protect that family. So you can find the consent order on our website, and also any additional information. If you go on the DEQ website, on the right-hand side, there is a ribbon that has a Colonial Pipeline selection in it, and you can see everything that we have received. Okay. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
We'll be happy to take questions.
Wonderful. I would like to open it up to the board for questions. Anyone who would like to go first? Okay, Commissioner Partee.
Good evening, Ms. Blackwood. How are you? Good, good. I believe there was questions that were forwarded to you from commissioners here on the dais.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you prepared to address those questions?
So I believe some of those were responded to in writing, and those were sent out on Friday. It's my understanding. But let me just say this. I would hopefully be prepared to answer your questions, so please feel free to go ahead and ask. And if I don't know the answer to it, I would be happy to try to take that back.
Thank you very much. Do you have the sheet that was sent out?
I don't have that in front of me, but it's perfectly fine. Please, sir, go
Okay,
ahead.
all right. I have a few questions that I just want to address. Would like to have addressed. And the first question happens to be, has the dollar amount of damage to property, to citizens, and the town been determined?
So I thank you for that question, and I will just say from the outset that out of respect for the privacy of individuals we've dealt with, I'm not prepared, nor I intend tonight, to discuss specific conversations we've had with landowners. But I would like to talk a little bit about some things we have done that don't necessarily tie to a specific individual. So from the outset of the release, as we mentioned, we've been monitoring these water supply wells. But we also made the offer to anyone within 1,500 feet who takes their drinking water from an active water supply well to convert them to the public water source at Colonial's expense. And some people took us up on that offer, and so that offer still stands to those folks who have not. Additionally, we purchased some properties. Some of those were to accommodate workspace needs that we had, and some of those were because landowners had questions for us. And then, as I mentioned as well, we are in regular communications with the Ayler Nature Preserve and conversations with them about work that we're doing on the property and also how we might be able to remedy some of the damages to them. And then I would just like to say as well, if any members of the public, again, ever have a question or want to have a conversation with us about a concern that they have and ways that they think they may have been impacted, our door is always open. Again, we have that mechanism on our website, and certainly they are welcome to reach out to me as well.
Thank you for that answer. Second, will a third party be used to affix real property value of loss or damages to Huntersville land value?
So again, I'm not going to go into details of any of those specific transactions, but I will say in all of those, third-party appraisers were involved. Colonial doesn't have any appraisers on staff, and we retain third parties.
Okay. My third question has been answered.
Okay.
As far as safeguards.
Great.
Presently, are safe alarms being put in place to avoid another incident for damages and loss of property? Will the company make the people of the town of Huntersville whole in the future?
So sure, if I could address those, I think those may be in two parts, if that's all right with you, Commissioner. So again, when we enter into conversations with homeowners or landowners, we always do that from a position of making sure that we're accommodating them and we're having, we understand what their concerns are and we're dealing with them in that manner. And then as well, our commitment to Huntersville is unwavering. We are committed to restoring this site, but more deeply than that, we've been here for 50 years. We have employees who live and work here as well. We support a lot of local organizations, and again, we are always looking to support communities. So I hope that you will see by our actions that we live up to those commitments.
Well, moving in, I can segue into my next question. Have the citizens that were affected been made, well, no, Colonial Pipeline acknowledged the severity of present and future contamination and compensate in good faith, and we talked about good faith, working with other organizations, the town of Huntersville and its citizens, i.e. donate or sponsor greenways or trailways?
Sure. So again, we're involved with many different local organizations. A couple that come to just the top of my mind would be we support the Catawba Riverkeeper. We also support the Davidson Land Conservancy, and there are other organizations we work with as well. Just to say publicly, we have a program that's built around supporting public organizations, 501c3s. We're always interested in having conversations with local organizations. So information about how an organization can reach out to us is available on our website as well, and we welcome those conversations.
Well, not to just tie you down, but the citizens here in Huntersville have been damaged emotionally, psychologically by this spill. And would it be appropriate, maybe not, for a company as huge as Colonial Pipeline, in good faith, just say, look, we're going to donate this amount of money for whatever expense, recreation, trailways, and we'll sponsor this particular trailways or bikeways, or any other area you feel that the citizens would appreciate. I just want to put that on the record and make Colonial think about that to satisfy and be as far as good faith for our citizens here.
And I appreciate your question, and I recognize that what's at the heart of that question is concern for your constituents and making sure that Colonial is a company that listens to their concerns. And we are. So a couple of things on that. Again, we have a longstanding commitment to this community, and we support many organizations, but that's not to say that we wouldn't support others, and we welcome those conversations. And again, I hope that the individuals we deal with, and we have conversations with those around the release site, and again, we've had some conversations with some of those people and purchased some properties, that they would say that we've dealt with them in a fair and forthright manner as well. My pleasure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Kidwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation from both groups. I did the site visit last week. And first of all, let me just say that the ground crew out there was very professional. Enjoyed walking with them, talking with them. One young man, I believe his name's Adam, actually coaches, or not coaches, he referees high school football, lives over in Denver. Just, we had a good conversation about, the area and how we've seen it grow over the years. During my trip, I saw some of the pumps working. You could see them still activating, coming out, pulling the gas out of the land. And that brought up the conversation that a truck was coming in to obviously be filled and take it. So I know that we're already using trucks. How many trucks are we utilizing as of today? Do you know?
Thank you for your question. And let me just say, I really appreciate you recognizing the hard work of the people at the site. They're very dedicated to their work, and it was our pleasure to host you. I invite all the commissioners, that's an open invitation, Mayor Bells, all of you. Anytime you'd like to come, we'd be welcome. You'd be welcome. I actually don't know the number of trucks per day, so I will take that question back and see if I can get an answer for you.
And in regards to the on-site process, because I know there's number of trucks leaving there daily. We're driving our water up to another place to have it safely decontaminated. The on-site building that you guys are talking about putting there, to basically recover the fuel and put the water back in our environment. I know that you guys are going through the permit process with the state of North Carolina right now. It's going to be across the site, and you purchased that land. Can't remember from the landowners' names, but it's going to go there. I know you're working with the town to put up nice berms, kind of keep it hidden. My question is, how long will that be there? How long will we see, or not see, but how long will Colonial have that particular structure working to recover? When what is the baseline of saying, okay, we've got it all, we can start shutting down and moving on?
Right, and thank you for that question as well. So if I may, the simple answer is we'll be there as long as it takes. So the timeline, and if I could just briefly expand on that, so our remediation is not based on gallons released, it's based on impact to the environment. So all that to say, if we release 5 gallons of gasoline, we wouldn't just recover 5 and say we're done. We're going to look at the data at the site and say, what does it tell us? How is the environment responding and being remediated? So we will be there as long as it takes. And I think you probably heard a little bit about this. We did design this plan to sort of minimize the visual impacts and also just the impacts to the community. So in addition to landscaping screening, our plan is to construct some facades around it to make it look sort of like an agricultural setting, a horse farm, if you will, to try to minimize those visual impacts as well. But I do want to reiterate, that's our commitment, is we're going to be here as long as it takes until the data tells us that the work is done.
All right. And my final question, I know you had all these questions here, and I'm just
That's all right.
shooting off the hip here. This particular pipeline, as I understand, it's about 5,500 miles long, serves the East Coast, 42-inch, I believe, or somewhere in that ballpark. I think the estimate is roughly, a million gallons every 15 minutes, or
That's right. It's about 80 million gallons a day that go through the.
80 million gallons, yeah, so.
Correct.
It's a lot. What devices or what do you have in place to help detect leaks in the future? And I know you talked about the sonar type device looking for things like that. Is there anything else technological wise that is being utilized in place to help, maybe it's not Huntersville, it might be somewhere down in Florida or somewhere down in South Carolina or north of us. Is there anything else that's being utilized to help detect and minimize any type of impact to the environment?
So yeah, so leak detection is certainly something we're focused on, but perhaps more importantly, it gets to your question, is leak prevention, release prevention. What can we do to prevent the releases from happening? So that's some of the work I was talking about earlier, and forgive me, I am not a technical expert, so I'll explain it to you the way that I best understand it. But this ultrasonic wall loss measurement tool is one of them. But our program involves running a variety of what we call, again, inline inspection tools, or you might have heard the term PIGs before, and that's what these are. These are tools that run through the pipe. So we've added some new things to our repertoire, and that includes this ultrasonic wall loss measurement tool. as well as some other things. We're kind of piloting some use of some things called smart balls that were developed originally in the water industry, and they roll along and they listen acoustically for the sound of a release. And then other things as well that, again, I'm not the technical expert, but I will tell you that we've spent a lot of time and energy to look at those technologies. And again, part of our plan with remediating those stacked and segmented sleeves was a lesson learned from here. What happened here was a failure under a stacked sleeve. And so again, when you look at how you can prevent an incident, taking those steps and going and remediating those on your system, I think is a good step.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Munger?
Commissioner Kidwell, I think you read my notes. There's that. Similar, I had wrote it down, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. I do want to acknowledge and appreciate the staff that is out there. The professionalism and dedication has been fantastic. I've been out to the site a couple times. They are really wonderful individuals. So I kind of got the answer on it. Pipeline is 5,500 miles, and a lot of these are going to be ish. Just give me an approximate. Is that okay?
So that's the pipeline system, right? And that includes all the stub lines and the main lines. It's not 5,500 linear miles.
Okay, but the whole system's 5,500 miles-ish. Okay. One of the things that I was told at a time, and maybe you can tell me if it has changed, is that one of the ways that they were using to check to see leaks was a flyover along the length of the line. Is that still?
Yes.
Okay. And is that done by a plane or is that done by a drone?
At the time, it was done by a plane, and we are exploring other technologies to use as well. So we do fly what you're talking about is our aerial patrol program. I believe under the regulations from PHMSA, we are required to do that every 15 days, but we actually do it every week. We fly the main lines every week.
And can you tell me approximately how high that plane is? when it
I
flies
do
it?
not know that answer off the top of my
No
head.
approximates?
I apologize, but I don't.
Okay. So, the next question I'm going to guess we probably don't know either, the speed of that plane.
I don't know. Again, good questions, and I'm happy to take those back to our technical team and get them back to you.
Okay. Switching gears into what I referred to as the line crawlers, and hopefully you understand what I'm saying, that whatever's going through that pipeline to check.
Yes, the inline inspection tools. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
as you will. How many of those exist in that pipeline?
So they are tools that we launch at various intervals. So they're not constantly in the pipeline. They are run at a regulatory interval, and I don't know that one off the top of my head either.
Okay. The other question might be a little bit difficult too. I'm just trying to figure out how much ground they cover. So overall, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you have 5,500 miles of line and you insert these things in, how much ground are they able to cover, and how long before they come back to point A where they started? Is that like a month, a year?
So they don't make a round trip. So
Okay.
I can explain this a little bit. So when we launch a tool, we put our pipeline, is one directional. So we may launch it in one location, and then it will run to another location, and it's removed from the pipe. And then the data from those inspection reports is generated by a third-party vendor. It's analyzed by them and then sent to us as well, and our internal team of experts looks at that data. And then from that data, they make assessments around, what do we need to do? Is this something we need to go out and look at? Are we going to monitor this over time? But it's quite a complex program. And again, I apologize, but I'm not a technical expert that can sit here and tell you how often we run each kind of tools. There are some regulatory requirements around the timing of it, and I know in some cases we exceed those.
Okay. Is it potential, or do you know for a fact that there are portions of the pipeline that are not actually monitored at any point in time?
I'm sorry.
So if you're saying they don't go from the entire length,
okay.
is it possible that there are portions of that pipeline that are not monitored by that device at all?
So all segments of our main line are what we call piggable. That means that inspection tools can run through them.
Can, but do they?
They do at certain intervals, yes.
Okay, so all portions of that pipeline are covered at one point in a time,
Yes.
maybe over a year?
All sections of the main lines are inspected at different intervals.
Okay. So I share Commissioner Kidwell's concern. I doubt it'll ever happen in Huntersville again. I mean, it happened. We get we hit it, we got nailed, whatever. I am very concerned about the next place and where that happens. And the idea that a plane flies overhead to look for puddles of gas frightens me. And I would like that system to be addressed, and I bring it back to the lessons learned. This would be something I would say is a lesson that should be learned, even if you hired individuals to walk that line. The odds are they're gonna find a two square foot puddle better than a plane flying, let's say 500 feet overhead at 100 miles an hour. So that would be my takeaway to you. Please consider doing something a little bit more intensive to find those leaks the next time it happens.
And I appreciate that feedback, and I appreciate the comment. If I may, aerial patrol is just one aspect of our leak detection systems. We have several different, we have technologies that are analyzed from our control center. We have aerial patrol. We have a public awareness program as well that's built around educating the public. But I definitely understand and appreciate your concerns.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Sorry, I didn't send in my questions, but I know you said that the process, I heard you tell Commissioner Kidwell, it's until the environment is okay. What will happen with the land afterwards when you no longer have to be here, and will all of that be removed? Is it going to be there just in case it happens again? What will happen with all of that?
So are you talking about on the Ayler Nature Preserve or on the properties that we own?
Properties that you own.
So at this point in time, we have not made a plan for the longer term than that, because again, we are focused on the remediation and the recovery, and it would be a bit premature for us to, sort of make that next step without knowing. And frankly, we are very focused on being here as long as it takes. So we're not looking at this as a short-term plan with an end game. We are here as long as that takes.
I guess just because I'm new to all this, I don't know if that's like 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. I can't even fathom how long that could be. I guess my last question is for the DEQ. I heard you say that the $4.5 million will be going to the local school system. When that is sent to them, is there any way to make sure that it actually goes to this portion of the school system, or is it just sent as a whole to the school system?
DEQ has no control of that whatsoever. So that would come through the public schools.
And that's to the state or to actual local, like?
That comes to the state, yes.
Commissioner Boone?
Yes, I've got several questions, and I'll start with Ms. Blackwood. And in case you don't have a copy of the questions, here they are, so you can put them in. You can put them in your computer, and I'm sure they'll be answered in a timely manner. But I'm going to start out with your comment earlier, I believe it was your second paragraph, where you said there was 400 working wells.
Yes.
Of those wells, how many are working as we speak? All 400?
So yes, they're all either recovery or monitoring wells.
All 4 of them are working right now. Okay. And then you said that at this time, there was no drinking water to show contaminants.
That's correct. No active drinking water supply wells have been impacted.
How about irrigation wells?
I do not know the answer to that question as I stand.
That's a very important question for people who have irrigation wells where they want to irrigate their gardens, and then we might have some brown areas that then we have a whole different problem. So you are saying right now that you don't think there's any problem with the irrigation wells?
Well, I'll defer to my colleagues at DEQ here,
Okay.
who are much more into the weeds, so to speak, about the details of the water assessments.
In our receptor survey, we did not find any irrigation wells within 1,500 feet of the release.
So if there's a well that's at 2,000 feet and that water was tested on a quarterly basis and then it stopped and there was a chemical or found that was not originally found, would you know that at this time?
There have been no detections in any of the water supply wells or even the expanded radius. We have seen no petroleum compounds in any of those wells.
All right, thank you very much for that answer. what is the current horizontal and vertical size of the flume of the spill site? And has it grown or decreased in size since the consent order was signed?
No. That is the simple answer. The plume covers aerially roughly 11 to 12 acres. There has been some minor horizontal expansion over the last 2 years. But currently, that entire area is contained within the monitoring system. So nothing is getting beyond the monitoring system at this point.
All righty, I've only got about 3 more, I'm sorry.
One other thing to say
Yes, sir.
about that. We're still working on the vertical delineation of the plume. There is free product present in at least 2 locations in the bedrock, which is of concern to us, and that is the next thing that Colonial will be doing. They have submitted a plan to us. We should finish our review of that plan this week to continue with the delineation of the vertical extent of the contamination.
Have you seen any additional contaminants in that vertical study at this time?
No.
Okay, and that brings me to my other question, is Colonial self-insured, or are they underwritten by an insurance company for liability coverage?
Colonial has an insurance tower, yes.
So you are underwritten with other insurance companies?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I just want to be sure that I got this straight. Since the original oil spill, and this is a DEQ question, no new chemicals have been identified in the soil within 2,000 feet, 2,000 feet of the spill?
Not within soil. That is different than groundwater, but we have not seen anything new within the soil profile either. There has been about 7,800 tons of soil removed from the site associated with the repair, and that has been taken for proper disposal. And we have done investigation of the soil. There is as far as I know, there is no surface contamination of soil there, and we have not seen any expansion of soil contamination.
Okay, that leads me to, I've got 2 more questions.
Sure.
If a citizen has an irrigation well and Colonial's tested it, and they says, well, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just do my own well. I'm going to drill a new well right next to it so I can water my garden. Well, guess what? Mecklenburg County has said no to that permit. Why is that?
Well, that's actually a question from Mecklenburg County, but I am aware that Mecklenburg County has the authority within their well ordinance to determine areas of impaired groundwater in which they will not permit a well.
So you said impaired groundwater, so they did find something that they would not issue a permit for a brand-new irrigation well.
If it's next to a well within the potential scope of the release, yes, they have that authority. Now, whether or not they're exercising that, that is Mecklenburg counties to deal with.
Okay, thank you very much.
Really.
And this is my last question for Colonial, is that you've heard 2 or 3 commissioners up here saying that all these fines are going to North Carolina educational system in Raleigh. And I think that you say that there's 4 pillars of pots that Colonial can give back to the community, but you're sitting here with one of this, it might even be the largest land spill in the United States, and that doesn't fit in any of those 4 pillars, in my view. And I'll just leave it at that and let you come up with a 5th pillar, I hope.
Again, we have a program that does, I think, encompass 4 pillars of giving, as you and I have talked about before, and we would welcome any organizations that want to partner with us to talk with us about that. We are always looking for opportunities to engage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Phillips.
So I was curious, how did you guys identify the parcels of land you bought on Huntersville Concord Road in Asbury Chapel? And how many parcels have you bought thus far?
Thank you for that question. So as I mentioned earlier, some of them were identified as needing for workspace for us. So if you drive by the site, you'll see that we have equipment there. And then a couple of others were landowners who approached us.
And were they required to sign an NDA after they sold to you guys?
So as far as I know, again, I'm not going to speak about specifics of deals with different landowners or rather transactions. I believe that there were confidentiality agreements put in place, but I don't know specific details.
Are there any other questions from the board? So I do have a few. I would like to say, Ms. Blackwood, thank you so very much for being present at all the tours and for allowing not only myself, but other board members to come out to the site. I've been out there, can't tell you how many times to this point, but I was out there just recently, within the last few weeks, and there were definitely things that I noticed different. I noticed the noise, and you addressed that with the fact that you've removed the generators, et cetera, off the site. So it was more quiet. It did seem like I was in a nature preserve again. The other thing that I noticed was the flowers, and I think that you did have a picture of that, but the bees, the insect life, the ecosystem, all of that looked pretty healthy. I would say a year ago when I was out there, the flowers didn't quite take. So this time around, I did notice that. And one of the questions that I have really is around the groundwater. And as you're continuing to pump all of the water out of our ecosystem, are we seeing any damage to the trees, especially those trees with the deep roots? Where are we at with that currently?
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor Bells, for that question. We did just recently do a tree survey in collaboration with the Ayler Preserve. And the reason we did that is because we are wanting to just monitor the trees over time. The roots of those trees are very, very deep. And so the good news is there haven't been any impacts to those trees. But that's why we did the assessment, is so we can continue to monitor them.
Okay. Is there any concern from DEQ's perspective, and I guess I will ask this question of Mr. Randolph and Mr. Jackson, as the proposed, what are we calling this? Yes, thank you. The new remediation where they're able to process on site? As that water is then released back into the environment, is there any concerns with the impact of that additional water going into the streams, et cetera?
That will be released under a permit issued by the Division of Water Resources. And the treatment system will be designed to meet specific criteria set in that permit, and that permit will be public noticed perhaps this week. So you can certainly get a look at that, and it will probably be on Water Resources website. What has been relayed to us is the same thing that has been relayed to Colonial, that the river keepers and the people who monitor surface waters actually thinks that this will be beneficial to the watershed because it will increase the flow in those creeks, certainly during drought conditions and so forth. So that's as we understand it. We have yet to see the permit. It's being issued by another division. We're anxiously awaiting that also. But it will be pretty rigorously controlled, and it is a large volume of water. It will be a large system. So,
Do you have concerns about the underground system as they're pulling all of this water out? Because it's almost like we're taking and we're giving away.
the object is to create an artificial drawdown of the water table to create an area in which in itself creates a barrier to any continued migration of contaminants, and at the same time to do additional remediation. I can't really do anything but give you an opinion about effect to the near-surface aquifers, and I'm not actually qualified to tell you that. A hydrologist rather than a geologist would be the person to consult regarding that.
Okay. Thank you very
Sure.
much for that. Earlier this evening, Ms. Blackwood, you talked about the lessons learned, and I know that was my question, however long ago that was. What are we learning through this process? And we talked about replacing the stack sleeves. Has Colonial replaced the stack sleeves throughout the entire 1,500 miles?
Yes, all of the stacked and segmented A sleeves on the main lines have been converted to pressure-containing type Bs.
Are there any along the lines that are not the main line?
Yes, and we are assessing those and making those evaluations of whether those need to be monitored or whether they should be converted, but that's a risk-based assessment that we do in our integrity group.
I would like to also thank you and Colonial for continuing to look for other solutions to leak detection as well as leak prevention. Because to Commissioner Munger's point, we don't want to see another community have to go through this, and I'm sure Colonial doesn't want to have to go through this either. I'm just looking through here really quick to make sure I don't have any other questions before I finish up.
Can I just jump in here real
Please
quick?
do.
You said that you've monitored all the D clamps, right? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm familiar with the term D-clamp.
Okay, what clamp did you just say? C?
I believe what I said is we converted all the stacked and segmented A sleeves on the main lines to pressure-containing B sleeves.
There's a C clamp and a D clamp, I believe, on pipelines.
I'm not familiar with those terms, and I don't know that they exist on our system either.
Okay, or is there any other type of patchwork that you have on your pipelines other than what you've just stated?
Sure, so the B sleeves are the primary type of repair that we do, or a cutout, which is to remove the pipe and put a new segment in.
Okay. But B's the only, you're not familiar with a C or a D clamp?
I apologize, Commissioner Boone, those are not familiar terms to me, no, sir.
It upsets me that, the flowers are growing they look great, but nobody can drink the water. So, unless it's coming in from Charlotte water. And it can't-
Again, there have been no impacts to active drinking water supply wells, and there are several people who still have those.
But I'm sure they're pretty nervous when they start drinking it.
I do not have any other questions for either organization, but I do want to thank you both for taking the time this evening to come and speak to this board and to our community. I want to thank you for working together to truly remediate and clean this up. And, just know that our community, our board members, we are all continuing to watch and want to be part of the process and be able to share with our residents of the cleanup that is actually happening and where you currently are. I just, again, thank you for taking the time out. It's greatly appreciated. I know that's something that we've been asking for quite some time, so.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and for having us here tonight. I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you both. We have two folks who've signed up to speak this evening, and as you come up, I would like to let you know that you have 3 minutes, and when you come, please state your name and your address for the record. Greatly appreciate that. First up is Bob Crichton. I hope I said that last name correctly. Perfect. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and you do have 3 minutes.
All right, don't count the clock until after I've stated my name, right?
Absolutely, she's got it.
So my name is Bob Creighton. I live at 8523 Flanagan Court. I'm in the Cedarfield neighborhood. I'm also the president of the Cedarfield 2 HOA. We have a new development, I don't know if it's 58 or 78 homes, that there has been a request submitted to the Planning Council for additional homes. The only access for that development is on a residential street, which is Angel Oak, which goes through the heart of Cedarfield, and approximately 30% of our residents are off that street. Angel Oak is not striped. There are 4 speed bumps on there. There are people walking their dogs. There are children playing along the street. It is inappropriate to have all the construction traffic and then years of 58 or 78 more homes and all the traffic without having any other way to get into that development. I understand that recently the board made a change so that projects like this are not weighed by the board, and I do understand the need to delegate. But we are very concerned that a brand-new process is in place here without adequate consideration for our input. We know that the developer has to have a public hearing, but there's no obligation for them to act on anything that we present to them. We rely on you, the elected officials, to watch out for and to balance the relationship of commerce and residential amenities. And I need to ask you to play that role. We would like to have a traffic count to get a baseline number of cars going along Angel Oak before this development starts. I understand that there is also a traffic impact analysis that is required. But keep us involved, please. We will continue to monitor this, but we're very, very concerned with a new process that is going to create a lot of construction activity, especially during the first, 1-2 years, when the land is cleared, when you've got workers going in there, moving trucks. It's going to be an interesting time. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Next up to speak is John Carruthers. Mr. Carruthers, as you come up to speak, if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, correct my misspelling if it's there.
You pronounced my name perfectly. I'm John Carruthers. I live at 13006 Angel Oak Drive, just referred to by Bob Creighton. I'm also a member of the Cedarfield 2 HOA board. I'll try not to repeat everything that Bob said about Angel Oak, but I want to just tell you a few things about it. It is a lovely street. It's not a very wide street. It's less than 24 feet wide. It constantly has worker vans because people there maintain their homes. It's constantly got foot traffic. There's a sidewalk there. And a good bit of our neighborhood uses that as the main access to the Torrance Creek Nature Trail. Where I live, we are just past a blind curve, down a hill from it, and if you go 2 houses either direction from me on both sides of the street, there are 13 children, ranging in ages from 1 to 12. The street is really the only access for already a large number of people. And I would echo what Bob said. is that I think it horrifies many people on our street that that would be the only access to another 58 or another 78 homes, primarily for the construction. I've never lived in a neighborhood where there's only one access before to the entire neighborhood. I don't know what that would mean for fire protection. I don't know what it would mean for the number of people who ultimately end up living there. I can imagine what it would mean for construction if there's no other access. So I'm concerned too that it doesn't seem like there is a way for us to have conversations with elected officials who are accountable now that the process has changed. Maybe I'm wrong about the process, but I want to ask the board to make sure that there is a way to weigh the feelings of the citizens who live in that area about public safety and just about the quality of living that this would cause. So I'm hoping that there is some way. I appreciated some of your campaigns speaking about balancing the positives of development with the amenities of living in a desirable community. And I know that everybody campaigned on a platform of listening to the community. So I just hope there's a way to do that.
Thank you very much. We will now move to agenda changes. Are there any agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion? There's a motion, there is a second. All those in favor of adopting the agenda? Any opposed? Seeing none, we've adopted the agenda this evening. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda? Any opposed? Seeing none, we will now move to our public hearing. Item 9A, conduct a public hearing on designating as a historic landmark the property known as the Blythe House, including the first and second level interior hallways and staircase of the building, the exterior of the building, and approximately .397 acres of land. And I will turn this over to Ms. Mullins. How are you this evening?
Good. How are you all?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us this evening.
It's great to see you all tonight. I'm presenting the historic designation of the Blythe House and would like to enter my staff report into the record. The Blythe House is located at 121 Gilead and is being proposed for historic landmark designation. The house is a two-story residence now being used as a commercial office space. The proposed designation is for the first and second level interior hallways and staircase in the building, the exterior of the building, and the entire tax parcel. The house has local historic significance as the homestead of the William Brevard Blythe family, and is the childhood home of William Leggett Blythe, who was a novelist, journalist, and local historian. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Historic Landmarks Commission held a virtual public hearing on September 12th on designating the Blythe House property as a historic landmark. Planning staff has reviewed the designation report and concurs with the assessment of the significance of the property proposed for historic landmark designation. The recommended action is to hold the public hearing and take action on the designation of the Blythe House. The Historic Landmarks Commission has a representative here tonight if you have any questions for them. They do not have a presentation for you all. Thank you.
So we'll open it up for any questions, discussion? Anyone? Well, seeing none, we will close this public hearing. Thank you very much for that. And now we will move on to item, I believe it is 10A, decision designating Blythe House as an historic landmark. Hand it back over to you.
Alrighty. Oh. Well, I don't have any other information other than what I
Okay.
have shared, so.
So we've just
y'all have
covered
any
it.
questions?
Commissioner Boone.
Yes, ma'am, then I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Blythe House located at 121 Gilead Road here in Huntersville, North Carolina as a historic landmark. This approval shall include the first and second level interior hallways, the staircase of the building, the exterior of the building, and approximately 0.397 acres of land. The property is listed under the tax parcel number 017111623 in the Mecklenburg County Tax Office. The property is owned by HFH Investment LLC.
Second.
Multiple seconds. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes. Blythe House is now an historic designation. We'll now move to item 10B. Consider decision on petition S22-02 Novant Health Special Sign District, a request by Lockwood Identity to amend the plan for the Special Sign District overlay for Novant Health Hospital located at 10030 Gilead Road, tax parcel 017166001. Ms. Mullins.
I will be presenting S2202, Novant Health Special Sign District, and would like to enter my staff report into the record. Novant Health Hospital is part of a special sign district originally approved in 2003 and amended in 2005 when the facility was Presbyterian Hospital. Sign Art has petitioned to amend the 2005 special sign district. They are requesting an approximately 50 square foot wall sign on an exterior canopy of a newly completed addition. And you can see the proposed sign and location in the pictures here. A virtual neighborhood meeting was held July 21st with no one from the public attended. The public hearing was held August 1st with no public comment. At the public hearing, a 38 square foot sign was requested. Afterwards, the applicants requested to add the word services to the sign, which would make the sign around 40 to 45 square feet. So staff recommended the applicant ask for 50 square feet to ensure the addition of more text on the sign would be without difficulty. The applicant is currently asking for a sign not to exceed 50 square feet. Staff recommends approval of the special sign district based on the compliance with Article 10.11.1 and the policies detailed in the staff report. The Planning Board recommended approval of the special sign district at their August 23rd meeting. The recommended action is to take final action on the Novant Health Special Sign District. Here is your statement of consistency. Novant Health does have a representative here tonight if you all have any questions for them as well. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion? Commissioner Munger.
In considering the proposed petition S22-02 Novant Health's Special Sign District, the Town Board recommends approval based on the Special Sign District complying with Article 10.11.1 and being consistent with the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan, Policies LU-8 and LU-8.1. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the Special Sign District Plan because it is consistent with the greater flexibility in form and style desired by the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan, and the sign itself is not to exceed 50 square feet.
There is a motion. There is a second. Thank you, Commissioner Boone. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll now move on to item 10.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips.
I would like to make a motion to consider ratifying previous action of the town board taken in closed session allowed under the North Carolina open meeting laws to award a 4.5% merit increase effective August 1st, 2022, and a $5,000 bonus for the town manager based on market analysis and performance evaluation.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Partee. All right, there's a motion, there is a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move to item 10D. This is a request to amend, for an amendment to preliminary services agreement for the new town hall. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before you tonight is an amendment to the original preliminary services agreement. This factors in the motion that the board made at their September 6th meeting to approve and fund option 4B for a new town hall. This takes into account some of the work that was done previously with the advanced planning, and then has a new schedule which is outlined on the screen, and that's the same from the Exhibit C, which is the new scope proposed by the design build team of Edifice Creech. And then just kind of to point out a few of the dates. Start construction June 2023. If we're getting through everything on schedule. Construction costs, we may start to see some of the costs begin in the spring of '23 to get some early packages out to make sure that we can get this thing done on a timely schedule without exceeding the projected cost of about $29 million. And then Tim Bender with Edifice is here in case there are any questions for them. And then Brent Green with the Creech team is here as well.
I do have a quick question. I know previously there was public input sessions. Do we have that built into this or no?
That is part of the schematic design. Last time we had a public charrette where we had a public meeting, and not knowing if that's going to be a public meeting or it could be some type of an online interaction. We do have a public input process to be defined, but ultimately want to hear from the public. If you guys have specific things you'd like to hear from the public, I know that's been a big topic that's been suggested. Hey, this is the public's building. We want to hear what they want to have in it, what they want it to look like. Those elements were certainly a part of the first process, but we're starting over, so we can modify, give the board, give the community what they want from this process.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Kovacs.
My first question is it's on this slide, it says new town hall annex, 4 stories, 54,500 total. And in this contract, it says square footage goals are 62,000 square feet.
That is adding this building into
Plus,
the new building.
Oh, okay. When looking between the old contract and the new one, I wanted to ask what a construction administration service fee of $429,000 is, because it wasn't in the previous contract.
Yep, that, if you're looking at the Exhibit C, the last line on the clarifications, there's a section in the back that's called clarifications that outlines costs that the town would be responsible for. And then the last item in there, it talks about a construction administration fee for both Creech as the architect and Edifice as the builder. And so that was included in the first one. It didn't call out the specific amount, so for transparency purposes, it's called out in this one. The previous designer construction administration fee was about $226,000. It would have been rolled into the GMP. Once we get down through this process and get to the point of having a guaranteed maximum price, one of the lines in there would be the construction administration fees, and they wanted to make sure it was clear for us. Here's the line you're going to see in that total.
Appreciate it. Under clarifications, it says stormwater design is now included.
That would be a redesign. That would be something the town would be responsible for. And the previous site was stormwater ready. There might have been some modifications there, but we would have to do some stormwater permitting, stormwater design as a result of the new site.
Thank you.
Commissioner Partee.
Yes, the cost for that stormwater, what would be the cost for the question that Commissioner Kovacs has asked you? What would be the cost for that stormwater assessment? Oh, on this site, not.
I don't know that we have that That will come through as we get further through the site work and the design.
Okay, till date, Bobby, what has the town paid to Edifice in total?
We spent about $242,000 on the original $960,000 contract that got put on pause. The remainder of that $960,000 contract was the money that was used to acquire the land just north of Town Hall.
Okay.
That was put on pause. So we were about 25% through that original contract.
That $240,000 was for the site on the southwest corner, correct?
It was. It got us through the advanced planning and some of the initial schematic design, which from talking with the team, we think we'll be able to certainly, that advanced planning rolls right over in some of that initial schematic design, how we were laying out office space for departments, some of that will roll over as well, so not completely lost.
Now, I know we talked about this before, but just for the record, that 1.9 million in costs, is that included in the 28 million as proposed?
It is. It would be 29 million all in, including the roughly 1.9 million for the preliminary services.
Okay. That's it for now. I might have another question.
Any other questions? Commissioner Munger?
Sure, just for clarification, the presentation we had pre-meeting on debt issuance, my understanding, my takeaway from it was that if we want to keep the tax rate at its current level, we can afford to issue debt of up to $25.825 million. And this might be a Jackie question.
Yeah, I'm looking at
apologies.
Jackie already.
So if we need to fund a town hall of $29 million, and you could probably hit me with math too, I would need to raise the tax rate 0.3 to zero this out.
I would caution you, so we discussed at the pre-meeting the possibility of issuing $20 million in debt in FY '24. That could be used toward town hall, that could be. That would not complete this $29 million project. We'd need $9 million from some other place. A potential place might be the ARPA funds. I would caution you about trying to balance the FY '24 budget right now. I mean, I'm not sure how we'll agree to use the ARPA funds. I'm not sure what else we might fund in the '24 budget. But is it possible? It is possible. Is that the best method? Depends on who you ask, maybe.
And just to remind me real quick, we have roughly 100 million total in CIP projects?
I think it's 205. I think it's
205?
200 million.
Okay. That'd be a lot of tax increase to be able to cover that, feels like, especially if we're going to spend 29 million on a town hall.
Pre-meeting presentation, wasn't it 243 million, which would be ballpark a 15-cent tax increase to fund 243 million?
Thank you.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Ms. Huffman, or you might be able to answer this. How long has the town had a CIP list? Forever, perhaps?
Yes,
And-
we have had a list for a very long time.
And we'll continue to have a CIP list probably 50 years from now, when I'm dead and gone?
I would recommend it, and it will help you for bond issuance purposes, yes.
Just curious. So at any point in the history of the town of Huntersville, have we completed every project on the CIP list?
And on time? No.
On time? I love that on time part. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Boone, is there?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, I know we said we have 12 million in ARPA funds. That does not include the ARPA funds that we surplanted, that we've received already, correct?
True.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Boone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion. A motion to approve the amendment to the preliminary service agreement.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to the preliminary service agreement with Edifice LLC, incorporating advanced planning work already completed, and begin new preliminary services for option 4B at the new town hall site.
There's a motion. Is there a second? So that, thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. Commissioner Partee, you had a question.
Yes, I did. I had a question for Edifice. I found my notes. On your owner contingency sheet, Creech and Associates, potential project cost and budget. You state in the first paragraph, the design and construction cost plus or minus 29 million has been based on utilizing portions of the building as shell space for future growth used by the town. Can you define shell space?
Shell space would be areas of the building that could be utilized later as the town grows. But right now, in the 29 million, we have that fully built out.
Okay. That was my question.
Right. There was a motion, and there is a second. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. And those opposed? The motion passes. Now move to item 10E. This is the reimbursement resolution for Newtown Hall. Ms. McGinnis.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for staying with us late.
Yes. Based on the contract you just approved from the architect, approval of this reimbursement resolution preserves our flexibility to use debt proceeds to minimize the impact of fund balance for design and site preparation. Approval of this resolution does not commit us to issue debt. However, if this resolution is not approved, design and prep will be funded out of fund balance.
Commissioner Boone?
I'm ready to make a motion if that's what you're...
Are there any questions? Seeing none.
Alrighty, I'd like to make a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution for design and construction of a new town hall.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Give me one more opportunity. Any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And those opposed? Motion passes. We'll now move to item 10F. Ms. McGinnis, this is yours as well. This is a budget amendment.
Right.
Right?
So what this does is this is appropriation of $3 million, allows the town to pay for architectural services and site prep as explained in the contract.
All right. Commissioner Boone.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the appropriating fund balance in the general fund in the amount of $3 million for the site preparation and design expense for the new town hall.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. Any discussion? Commissioner, no? Anyone? All right, all those in favor? And those opposed? Motion passes. We'll now move to item 10G. Mr. Jaycox, our topic this evening is Abernathy Park Master Plan. I'd like to turn it over to you.
Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm just waiting for that. Oh, there we go. Okay. You waiting on me, I'm waiting on you. So this evening, we're going to talk about Abernathy Park Master Plan. If you recall, this fiscal year, the board approved $200,000 for improvements to Abernathy Park. The original plan was to look at replacing the 16-year-old playground, placing some fence in, adding some landscaping, and give it a good facelift. The Parks and Rec Commission, after that was approved, the Parks and Rec Commission challenged staff to look at, okay, we understand some of the amenity layouts aren't ideal. So they challenged us to let's look at this if it's a clean slate. So when that was mentioned, typically if you're going to do that, that's major changes to a park. You want to do a park master plan, get some input. If we were just going to replace the playground and some fencing and landscaping, typically we wouldn't go through a master plan process. So that's kind of that's how we got to the point that we're at now. So a little bit about Abernathy Park. Learned today that this parkland was donated in 1959 by Julius Abernathy, the owner of the mill. So we got to learn some history thanks to Janet's pretty quick find out information. We knew this was the oldest park in our system, but we didn't realize it was 1959. So it's been around for a while. So it's north of the Anchor Mill site, south of Rama Church Road, and to the east of Highway 115, and sits along Glendale Drive, which is a connecting road between Huntsville Concord and Rama Church Road. This is the current layout. Glendale Drive runs to the east of the property. So you see there's a basketball court, a playground, and a restroom building that fronts the street. There's a driveway to the north of the property that has about 15 paid parking spaces to the northwest corner. And then the remaining of the property is a baseball field that does have lights. And this is just some pictures from, closer into the site, just showing you the proximity to some of the homes and the light poles that are out there now. Proximity of the playgrounds to the street, as well as there's some on-street parking. Restroom building was installed in 2008, and the basketball court has been around as long as I've been here as well. So we had our public input meeting on August 17th on site. And what we did before that to help get the word out, we put signs up at the park both in English and Spanish. We dropped off flyers in English and Spanish at Angels and Sparrows to the staff there. We also had a contact that lived across the street and gave her flyers to help get the word out both in English and Spanish. So we had about 20 people attend to give us feedback. We had 4 stations. One had to show the current park layout and one showing the proposed new park layout. And then also had some stations to give input on fitness equipment, playground equipment. And then we just had a generic space where you can just give us any ideas that you have. Maybe they're not park related. And so the layout we proposed to the public input meeting based on feedback from the Parks and Rec Commission about looking at a clean slate was removing the baseball field and moving the basketball court and the playground away from Glendale Drive. That was a concern that we heard. We added some fitness stations. The gray lines are proposed walking trails around the open field, as well as some sit-in areas. And then, like I said, the parking will still stay in the same area. And then also it provided space for a shelter between the playground and the basketball court. So some of the things that we heard in the public input, they love the idea of the new layout without the baseball field. They like the playground area and basketball court being pulled away from Glendale Drive. One of the things we heard the most was needing speed humps on Glendale Drive. Needed more shade, like the idea of fitness stations, walking trails, and would like to see lights for the basketball court. Residents are concerned with the current traffic on Glendale and the increased speed and traffic over the last few years. This don't happen often, but there is some dust that comes from the ball field, the light pollution, and concerns about the basketball court and playground being so close to the road. Parking issues every once in a while when there's practices there, and if there's people coming to use the playground, there's sometimes parking issues. And as you heard, when we talked about taking away the baseball field, it wasn't a decision we decided, it's not gonna have any impact. So the one thing we do is our co-sponsor groups every season has to turn in their numbers for fee allocations. And so we've been tracking this for about 16 years. So we added the 2 baseball, softball fields at Abernathy Middle School, Alexander Middle School in 2017. So we looked back the last 5 years for the spring season between all the groups who provide local baseball. So we had 939 residents in 2017, and this past spring we had 943. So additional 4 residents playing spring ball over the last 5 years. Then we also look at the non-residents, additional 84 non-residents. In the fall season, 2016, there was 542. Last fall, there was 587, so 45 additional residents. Non-residents, there's been a huge increase from 228 to 547, so we had 319 more non-residents. So I'm not saying, I don't want to present these numbers to say there's not need for fields, just we need to make sure we understand where the participants are coming from and the impact of other groups. So basically, the last 5 years, more of the non-residents are impacting the field use than they are than the Huntsville residents. And these are some of the amenities that the community ranked pretty high. Now, one thing we're trying to do with this facility is to try to make this more inclusive playground, meaning instead of trying to separate users' abilities, we're trying to put them together, meaning like the We Go Round, a wheelchair and able bodies can use it together. swings, able body, and a wheelchair can use it together. Same thing with outdoor fitness. You can use it with someone else and not be separate. So all-inclusive is different than being accessible. A playground that has mulch that you can wheel up to a platform and get out your wheelchair meets ADA, but truly is not accessible. So this goes beyond that. And that's one of the goals of this improvements to the park. So this is the layout. Parks and Rec Commission unanimously approved this at their last meeting. And feel any questions?
Commissioner Partee.
Thank you, Mr. Jaycox. Have you received any feedback from the Parks and Rec Commission members regarding the ball field, softball field?
Yes, they approved and recommended this master plan.
Are they aware of the latest correspondence that we've been receiving from the community regarding the softball, the field in itself?
So I've received one before this weekend that I did share with everybody that I responded to. Now, the ones today, I don't think they've got those.
I have a 16-year-old granddaughter who plays softball, and she's in the Brooklyn, Queens, New York JV team, and they won their championship this year, and it's hard to get fields to play on. I know this is not Brooklyn, New York, but I can sympathize with a lot of the correspondence that we received lately regarding the lack of areas for female softball players to practice. I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but I think possibly we can try to find a way to fit in a ball field here or reconfigure the open field. And I'll just leave it up to my other commissioners, but that's where I'm going now, my feelings.
So I think before we continue, I do want to take a moment and recognize our Parks and Rec committee members that are here this evening. If you wouldn't mind, stand up. Thank you all for your work. Truly, thank you all for your work. And you're telling me that the Parks and Rec Commission was unanimous with this plan?
That's correct.
Okay. I'll open it up for additional conversation. Commissioner Kovacs.
Bear with me. First off, I know you showed us the numbers of, for up to 2021. Do we know for 2022?
We haven't got those yet.
Okay.
This month or so, they typically turn those in for the fall.
Okay. And then I do definitely appreciate the continuity for all physical ability levels. That was very wonderful to see. One of my questions was, when we went to the public community meeting, the people were provided the master plan that we just saw on the last screen, correct? So the only option we provided them was without a baseball field or softball or?
We show the current layout. Would you prefer the current layout or this proposed new layout?
And so the votes were more for without it, out of the 20 people that were there? And then for the exercise equipment, was that something that had been requested by residents, or did we just provide that as offers for them?
So our system-wide park master plan, there was some requests about outdoor fitness stations. And as we put them in more places, they seem to be more used and more people want them. So we felt this is a great location for that. Those who maybe can't afford to go to the gym or have access to a gym, this is a way to provide that.
Was there a way for people to say if they want them or don't want them, or is it just to pick the ones that you like?
Well, it was more of choose which kind you like, yeah.
I'm mentally going based off of the one that we had over at Waymer, since I wasn't able to go to this one, so I was trying to figure it out.
It was very similar to that meeting.
Okay, and then similar to what Commissioner Partee said, I was wondering if there was a way to have like a combo field or something that's kind of hybrid. We had almost a similar situation when we were talking over at Waymer between two different sports, and we were able to find a combo. I know a field and the baseball might be a little bit harder, but I didn't know if we had looked into that option.
Yeah, we looked at trying to see if we can shrink the field and still be able to plug in a basketball court and a playground and the outfield, but it brings that field so far into the edge of really the clay area that there's concerns, if there's an infield baseball area, it doesn't mean someone's not going to show up that's 10 or 11, hits the ball into the playground or the basketball court. So getting that in there is going to be really difficult.
Any other questions? Commissioner Munger?
Your turn.
You first this time. I'll steal all your thoughts. One thing I had heard on the current configuration is the lights that are in existence cannot be upgraded due to property line
Yes.
issues. Is that true?
Yeah, so about 2 or 3 years ago, we had funds to replace Waymer and Abernathy lights. At the time, we went to bid, and as we're going to bid, trying to make sure we can meet the light ordinance, those lights had to be pulled in so far to meet the foot candle spillage on the properties. I mean, that field would be very limited from use standpoint. But we went to bid, the bids came back so high, we just did the Waymer lights.
Yeah.
And so after that, because they're wooden pole systems and they're old, it always concerned me. We had Electric Cities, when they were doing their inspections of the poles around town, they went and inspected the poles at Abernathy, and last year, they felt safe with their current conditions. But that's something we gotta keep on doing to make sure, because over time, wood does start to have problems.
Okay, that's good to know. Additionally, one of the things that I noticed as a complaint was dust. Is there anything we can do in terms of controlling that and making it less dusty, if you will?
So typically, what we've been trying to do since we got those complaints a few years ago is you try to go earlier in the morning when there's a dew. So we haven't had as many complaints recently. We're trying to adjust our schedule. Maybe that's the first field we drag, or maybe because it's not used for games, it's not have to be lined. So we can kind of pick when we can drag them. So maybe way after rain, when the dust is not as bad. So I think last year or two, I think that's helped a lot with the dust issue.
Okay, perfect. I will say, I live less than a mile away from this park. I wasn't even aware of its existence, to be honest. I mean, that's just me being honest. I went out there yesterday just to kind of get a feel, because as every commissioner on this board and the mayor, obviously, we received a number of emails, and the unique configuration of the park, I believe someone had mentioned it, it really only is good for under 12, and obviously one of the bigger draws or number of emails we received was for girls softball, and I struggle with the idea that we're taking a field away from girls softball. And when I went out there and I spoke to people, I spoke to someone whose backyard backed up to the actual field. They had no idea what was happening, that anything was going to happen to that field. And I walked over and I spoke to another two ladies who apparently were in the area. They didn't know, and then another gentleman came in with his 2 children, and they were out playing catch, and I asked them, and they had no idea. And I know we do everything we can, and it's very difficult, because we jump through all kinds of hoops to try and notify the public and make sure that they're aware and get them to actively participate. But it was just a combination of the emails and actually being there and feeling it, and it's such a unique park, and I struggle with the idea. It's just because, you know, when I was growing up as a kid, you went out and played in the ballpark, a baseball field, and I feel like where it is and the people that are in the immediate surrounding area, it's better served remaining a ball field. And I mean, that's my opinion. And I do appreciate everything that the Parks and Rec Commission Board does. You obviously do your diligence and evaluate it as best you can and give us recommendations. And sometimes we don't agree, but I do appreciate everything you guys do. So that's my thoughts on it.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with what Commissioner Munger has said, but I'm going to kind of focus on a couple things here. Non-residents, Cornelia, Charlotte, whatever, they pay a higher fee to join these little leagues? No, they pay the same fee as a resident? Okay, I was curious. And then I was looking at the pictures of the public input session, and I noticed that, you know, there's the nice rendering of what you've put forward up here on the slide earlier, and then it's just photos, kind of what you showed of the current condition. Was there any attempt at the public input session to take what we currently have and beautify it and say, hey, we're gonna fix the ball field and we're gonna add a little bit of stuff here and here, and in a nice presentation, or did we just show the current conditions and say, you can have shiny and new, or you can have this and we're not gonna do anything?
So the first two boards are just pretty much current site and potential site. That's what we presented.
So it was,
It was, you know, either-
there was no, and I'm not trying to say you did on purpose, but there was no attempt to take the current site and you can go back, I think, a couple slides, and you could see the, to make it look like this and say, hey, we're going to update the ball field here, and we're going to do this and this and this and this.
Now, there was discussion that if we don't change anything, the new playground will be fit into where the current playground is, but there wasn't like another diagram that showed.
Okay. So if we keep the ball field, we still get the playground?
Yes, we'll just put the playground back to where it was. We might be able to, actually. So there's a little bit of
I don't care
room,
where it's at, just
of course, y'all can't see this, but there's a little bit of room here, so we could maybe, because the idea is accessible playgrounds typically take up a bigger footprint, because you're decking and so forth. So we're considering, I know y'all can't see the green dot, but there is some space here that we could maybe, instead of the swing taking up space, we put the swing here, and that gives a little bit of room to make it a little bit of bigger playground, is the one thing we would consider if we go back with the playground being up on the street. Yes.
That was going to be my question, Commissioner Kovacs, because I drive through there at least once a month.
You're the
And
speeder.
I'm not the speeder. As a matter of fact, people follow me because I do not speed, especially through communities like this. So the basketball court is up on the road, but the playground would be as well, making sure, so you're talking about potentially creating an L shape if the board chooses to leave the ball field?
Yes.
Creating an L-shaped playground and better fencing. I mean,
Yeah, so all that split rail fencing would be replaced with like a 5-foot fencing. Because we do see basketballs, I mean, basketballs bounce more than 4 feet. 5 feet, I think, is the highest we can go according to ordinance front of the street. At least 5 feet will help knock down some of that.
because the worst thing that we would have is our children running in to get their balls out in that road. That's a huge concern. Commissioner Partee?
Mr. Jaycox, the basketball court, could that be halved into make it a half court? Because mostly kids don't play full court, especially in the heat. Maybe, half, you could take part of the court out and make it a half court?
We could do that, yeah.
And
I guess if we're keeping the same site, then I think we would probably just,
would that give you some more room? I mean, you can play around with it,
well,
but
I mean, that could maybe give you more room to maybe expand the playground a little bit more.
half court? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So, Mr. Roberts?
I was going to say, Mayor, based on all this feedback, could we, if the feedback from the board is to sort of keep the baseball, softball field, maybe we can go back to the drawing board and come up with some pretty pictures, I'm going to say, or better pictures than this one, for you to consider and seek feedback from the public or whatever.
That's what I was getting ready to ask, was if the board would entertain kind of allowing Mr. Jaycox to take what he's heard this evening back, and if that is the board's, if that's the majority of this board's direction, that you feel like, you want to see something come back with the ball field, with modifications. I just also don't want to take away from the work that the Parks and Rec Commission has done, because they've obviously put a lot of thought into this, and just want to, okay, Commissioner Partee. Commissioner Boone?
Thank you very much. Yes, I do. I have probably a comment to make. I'm going to come at this a little bit different. I think we need to look at this the way Mr. Abernathy would have looked at it in 1959. He probably donated this land for a softball field, because at that time, factory workers in small towns, they took great pride in their local softball teams. You can look at the history from Shelby to Lincolnton, all the way to Huntersville. And I think this, in his memory, we need to keep some type of baseball here on this 2 acres. And I think that we need to go back to the drawing board. I think you folks have done a great job, and we just need to tweak it a little bit and keep the baseball field.
Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. I will make a motion that we have Mr. Jaycox and the Parks and Rec Commission go back and reconfigure the Abernathy Park and bring back their results to the board.
There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All those in, commission, okay, please.
Haven't we already approved that in the past, like the minor upgrades with keeping the baseball field, fence, repairing or getting a fence, the cosmetics and the playground, upgrading it?
So part of the budget was creating the playground and fencing the landscape, and was the original part of the budget.
Okay, so does that motion, Emily, work?
So if you're asking them to come back with a reconfiguration of the layout, that's something that could be incorporated in the motion as to wanting to see different renderings. Was that the purpose and intent?
Was it the purpose and intent, Commissioner Partee?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and you wanted to see the reconfiguration with the baseball field remaining?
With the baseball field, yes, correct. Thank you.
All right, so there, Commissioner Munger.
I apologize, but I'm going to jump ahead to the next item. The next item pertains to a grant. Is there a specific timeline on when that grant might have to be filed for us to take this action?
Yes, so that grant is due November 1st.
So you can whip that out in 2 weeks, right?
I'll be honest with you, I've already submitted, my pre-review was due last Friday, so the state is reviewing it. It doesn't mean we can't change it. I would say this, from a point scoring criteria, it's very similar to the Parks and Rec Trust Fund grant we got for Rosedale. This one's more about accessibility. If we're not adding additional recreation amenities, your score goes down. So I think it probably won't rank as high, but doesn't mean we can't try.
All right. I appreciate that. I just wanted to get that out there because it might be relevant.
So the grant is due November the 1st?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. All right.
First or second, I don't know what day of the week that is.
All right, so there is a motion and there is a second requesting that the Parks and Rec staff, Mr. Jaycox, and Parks and Rec Commission go back and revamp and then go back and include the ball field into the upgrades. And then you would bring that back to us. Is there, so my question is, when do you want to see this back?
2 weeks.
Well, September. The committee wants to meet again in September for a second meeting, but it wouldn't be until third Wednesday of October.
The third Wednesday of
Like I said, the grant, I'm. Yeah.
So,
So I really think it might be, I want to say it's a waste of our time, but I think scoring wise for the grant is probably.
so pushing,
I don't wanna
doing this
rush
quickly
this,
is not
knowing that the grant
necessary.
doesn't really have
Okay,
any hands.
that's what I needed to know. All right, so there is a motion and there is a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll now move to item 10H, accessibility for Parks grant for the Abernathy Park project. Is there a motion?
I'm going to make a motion like a Hail Mary because we never know what's going to happen. I'll make a motion to consider authorizing staff to submit an application for the Accessibility for Parks grant for the Abernathy Park project if they deem it necessary and worthy.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a motion and there is a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now move to mayor and commissioner reports. So the EDC folks, they're trucking along. I believe if my app was correct, I think they're working 43 projects currently, but I have no other update at this point. MTC, the next MTC meeting is next Wednesday on September the 28th. That is that evening, I know that we will be taking a vote on the update for the 30% design for the red line. I have not received any questions from anyone. At this point, just continuing to read through the material, that 30% redesign will include, so that everybody is aware, frequency. They will update if it is approved, they will go back and look at dual tracking or bulb outs for tracks so that trains can move up and down the line frequently. So not just going down in the morning into Charlotte and up in the evening. The other piece that they will also be looking at is the engine itself, clean energy versus a diesel engine. So that's the other piece, because the tracks would have to be upfitted for that train. And station location, Mr. Roberts, am I missing anything else out of that packet? So, okay, so just making sure that you all are aware. I know I shared this back in August, but reiterating that that is the conversation we're having at MTC, along with updates to the Village Rider and their first mile, last mile, along with on-demand service. So that transit piece, those are the components that we're discussing at this point. And that is all I have in my report. Commissioner Phillips.
For Visit Lake Norman, next Lacrosse Carolina Fall Shoutout will be held October 9th. Youth lacrosse tournaments will be played at Richard Berry Park. Over 50 teams from 5 states are registered to compete with teams coming from as far as Florida. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell.
No comments.
Commissioner Partee.
Thank you, Mayor. On September 8th, at the invitation of Commissioner Boone, I was honored to speak before the Rotary Club about my experience at September 13th at the World Trade Center. Thank you, Commissioner Boone, for your invitation and the Rotary Club. On Wednesday, September 14th, my wife Michelle and I attended the Pottstown Public Input Meeting at the Little School given by the Mecklenburg County Landmark Commission Historical Designation. Also, in Pottstown, on Saturday, September 24th, 1 p.m., Habitat for Humanity will have an information session on critical home repair at the Delwood Center. As always, I want to advocate for gun safety, especially in homes where guns are stored and children are present. Accidental and intentional discharge causes serious injury and death. The Huntersville Police Department has free gun safety locks. Organizations and individuals can contact the police department or contact me at dpartee@huntersville.org. Let's be child safe. And finally, support all your nonprofit organizations. I like to support Cool Kids Clubhouse in honor of Dan Jensen, located here in Huntersville. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Kovacs?
From Lake Norman Chamber, this past Thursday, the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce hosted the annual Diversity Luncheon at North Stone. The new Chief People Officer at Novant Health, Carmen Canales, was there to speak. 2 of our Huntersville organizations were designated diversity champions. The Lake Norman Community Health Clinic was the nonprofit, and Microban was recognized as the corporate diversity champion. Others recognized were ones that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they were the Davidson Center for Learning and Academic Planning as the small business, and Cheryl Banks Barber as the individual. Barber's chaired the 2021-2022 Women's Conference and served as the on the Diversity Council since 2017. And I was able to attend that, as was Commissioner Kidwell, and it was a really, really nice afternoon with some great people. Tomorrow, Tuesday, the 20th, the Chamber will host 5 ribbon cuttings at the Chamber. The event takes place at 9 a.m. And finally, the Lake Norman Chambers Business Expo will be held here in Huntersville at the Recreation Center on Bearhoff Drive, Tuesday, October 11th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. There still are booths available, but it's expected to sell out. The expo is the region's largest business-to-business trade show with 120-plus businesses and nonprofits showcased to the public. So if you want to attend, please make sure you sign up. There's no admission, and the public is encouraged to come on out. So contact the Chamber for more information.
Thank you so very much. Commissioner Munger.
Just want to thank the amazing crowd for hanging out with us to the bitter end. I appreciate that so much. The Public Arts Commission meeting was canceled, and I just want to give a shout out to Angels and Sparrows, who had a fundraising event last Friday that I understand was a rousing success. I was unfortunately out of town. I know a number of people up here were able to go. And last but not least, as always, if you have the opportunity to give, please consider supporting our nonprofits.
Commissioner Boone.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I don't have a report, but I do have a question about your report. If I could ask you that, just a reminder on the rail line that they're studying to come up this way in August, you said that you were not going to support that unless you had a seat at the table. Are you still taking that stand?
I don't recall saying I wasn't going to support that. I was looking at all of the information that I was getting back from them to make sure that there was a purpose behind it. And ultimately, that's advancing the transit system as a whole. And if we do not update that study, and funding becomes available, our project wouldn't happen because the study is so old.
The study's 2 years old.
No, this is a different study. This is a completely different study, Commissioner Boone. Actually, this is the study from 2009, the 30% design. What you're referring to, which I completely agreed with the decision of Mayor Annarella at the time to vote no, was they were looking at at alternative placements for the line. And we all know that there is no other place for the line other than the line that's sitting right out here. You're not going to put it up 77 or through another corridor. That was, in my opinion, a study that should never have been done. This study is one that looks at updating all the components, that everything that we've talked about for many years about frequency and clean engines, et cetera, that's what this study is actually going to address.
Be interesting to see how that vote goes.
So with that, are there any closing comments? Commissioner Phillips.
I had to wait for somebody to walk back in the room. Major Graham. Narcan, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know the last couple years I have been a complete pain in your side, but you have been so empathetic, understanding, and have jumped through hoops and hurdles. Chief Hoyle informed me and Commissioner Munger the other week, our HPD were about 30% at Narcan carrying. Hopefully by end of fall, we'll have 100% of our officers armed with Narcan. Chief Hoyle's a great guy, but I'm telling you, every time that I saw Major Graham, I was like, hey, Narcan, hey, Narcan. And I also want to thank Commissioner Munger for being my person on this. It's not been an easy road for any of us, but we got it done. And then having our officer come up here, within a few weeks of carrying it and save a life, you cannot put to words how much that means to my heart and to our community. So thank you very much, sir.
Well said. Well said. Commissioner Kidwell.
Yeah, I'm going to just take a moment, and I want to thank my wife. I get to come to these meetings and go to various events for the town, to represent the town. And I know she's not listening right now because she's probably putting my 8-year-old to bed, and she put our 6-month-old to bed an hour ago. But I just want to go on record and say, I appreciate her so much for allowing me the opportunity to sit up here with you and serve the town of Huntersville. And I just want to be on record with that.
Well done. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Motion to go into closed session per whatever's written down.
Is there a motion to go into closed session, Commissioner?
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A6 to consider the qualifications, competence, and performance of an employee.
Second.
There's a motion, there is a second. All those in favor? None opposed.